Human David Reyes dove through plasma blasts and grabbed the terrified alien girl Altair, shielding her slim body with his armor as they tumbled behind cover, while Gamelon warriors swarmed like angry hornets, enraged that he dared protect one of their own. The mission had gone to complete shit. Reyes and his squad had been sent to this hellhole to gather intel on the Gamelon's war capabilities, to give humanity a fighting chance in the escalating interstellar conflict. Instead, they walked into an ambush. Plasma and projectiles crisscrossed as human and Gamelon forces clashed in brutal close-quarters combat. Reyes was no stranger to the horrors of war, but amidst the chaos and death, he spotted her, a young Gamelon female, cowering behind rubble as stray shots whizzed by, her amber eyes wide with primal fear. She wasn't a soldier, just an innocent caught in the crossfire. Every instinct screamed to leave the Xeno and get the hell out. She was the enemy. But a deeper part of Reyes, the part that made him human, couldn't abandon her to die. Even if she had blue skin and pointed ears, he had to save her. So, he charged into the firestorm, snatching the girl and pulling her to safety as a plasma bolt singed his shoulder plate. He dragged her into an abandoned structure, barricading the door. The girl recoiled from him, shouting in an alien tongue and baring sharp teeth. Reyes held up his hands. "It's okay, you're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." His words were gibberish to her. Gamelon propaganda painted humans as bloodthirsty savages. She spat a word that his translation software rendered as monster. But as Reyes removed his helmet, revealing a very human face etched with concern, her fear seemed to ebb slightly. He offered her a nutrient bar from his rations. She sniffed it cautiously before taking a tiny bite. It wasn't much, but it was a start. If Reyes could gain her trust, she could be the key to ending this war before humanity was wiped out. He just had to keep her alive first. Angry Gamelon voices echoed nearby. Her eyes went wide and she tugged his arm, motioning to a back exit. Reinforcements were coming. They had to move now. Reyes knew he couldn't go back to his squad. Not with her. He'd be court-martialed for treason. But leaving her meant certain death. He was trapped between worlds, his fate now tied to hers. He took her hand, alien fingers intertwining with human, and they plunged into the wilderness together. The war raged on behind them. What lay ahead was anyone's guess. David and Altair raced through the tangled alien underbrush, hearts pounding as the whine of Gamelon's search drones echoed behind them. Flashes of lightning illuminated the twisted landscape, followed by deafening cracks of thunder. A powerful electrical storm was brewing, and they needed shelter fast. "There!" David pointed to a dark opening in the cliff face ahead. They stumbled into the cave just as a blinding bolt struck a nearby tree, splinters exploding in all directions. Altair shivered, her thin clothing no match for the damp chill. Without hesitation, David gathered a pile of dry moss and twigs, then used the sparking wires from his damaged gauntlet to coax the kindling into a small fire. Altair watched, amazed, as the cave filled with warmth and dancing light. "How did you do that?" she asked, scooting closer to the flames. David shrugged. "Survival training. Never know when you'll need it." He pulled a metallic blanket from his pack and draped it over her shoulders. The next morning they resumed their trek, picking a precarious path up a steep mountain pass. The crumbling shale offered little traction, and Altair lost her footing, crying out as she tumbled down the slope. David lunged and grabbed her hand, but not before a sharp rock gashed her calf. "I'm fine, leave me," Altair gritted out, blue blood seeping between her fingers as she clutched the wound. David ignored her protests, removing a medkit from his belt. With surprising gentleness, he cleaned and bandaged the cut, then used 2 stiff branches and strips of cloth to fashion a splint around her ankle. "Can you walk?" he asked. Altair tried to stand, but pain shot up her leg and she sank back down, shaking her head. Without a word, David crouched in front of her, motioning for her to climb onto his back. Grudgingly, Altair wrapped her arms around his neck. As David hoisted her up and soldiered onward, she found herself marveling at his strength and compassion, qualities Gamelon soldiers were taught that humans utterly lacked. Hours later, Hunger clawed at their bellies, their meager rations long gone. They crouched behind an outcropping, studying the Gamelon outpost in the valley below. "I'll sneak in, grab what we need, and be back before they realize anything's missing," David whispered, checking his sidearm. "You'll never make it past the security grid without me," Altair argued. "I know every scanner sweep pattern and camera blind spot." She met his eyes, determined. "We do this together." Reluctantly, David nodded, and they crept towards the compound, Altair guiding them through gaps in the defenses with uncanny precision. In and out in minutes, they retreated back into the wild, packs laden with precious supplies. But their trials were nowhere near the end. A piercing shriek cut the air, and a massive horned beast burst from the undergrowth, all teeth and claws and primal rage. David shoved Altair behind him and opened fire, the shots only seeming to enrage the creature further. It lunged, slashing with scythe-like talons. David screamed as they raked across his chest, shredding flesh and spattering the ground crimson. Still, he fought, grappling with the monster, sinking his blade into its throat even as its fangs clamped on his shoulder. The beast shuddered and collapsed, but David crumpled too, blood pooling beneath him at an alarming rate. Altair scrambled to his side, ripping open the medkits with shaking hands. "Stay with me, David. Stay with me," she pleaded, pressing wads of gauze against the wounds, then injecting clotting agents and painkillers. Barely conscious, David clasped her trembling fingers as she worked frantically to stem the bleeding. Over the next hours that stretched into days, Altair never left David's side as he lay in a feverish haze, changing his dressings, coaxing water and nutrients past his lips. Slowly, painstakingly, he clawed his way back from the brink. As his lucidity returned, Altair found herself opening up to him, confessing her mounting disillusionment with the war and those who led it. "All my life, I was told humans were soulless barbarians," she murmured. "But you're unlike anyone I've ever known. You've shown me compassion, selflessness, even in the face of death. How can my people be so wrong?" David squeezed her hand, meeting her troubled gaze. "War makes villains of us all," he said softly. "It's easy to hate an enemy you don't truly know. But when you look past the propaganda, the fear, we're not so different." In the days that followed, as David mended, Altair began teaching him the intricacies of her native tongue, the traditions and tales of her people. To her delight, he absorbed it all with rapt fascination, even mastering the delicate pronunciations that eluded most outsiders. But their hard-won peace shattered when the telltale hum of a Gamelon recon drone whirred overhead, photoreceptors gleaming as it marked their position. They broke camp and fled, tearing through ravines and thickets as the ominous thrum of approaching dropships filled the air. With Gamelon forces closing in and nowhere left to run, a vicious certainty crystallized in David's mind. There was only one option left, one last-ditch hope, if his squad would even help Altair, if they'd even help him anymore. But he had to try. He'd made the silent vow to protect her, and damned if he would break it now, even if she was supposed to be his enemy. Even if every instinct still insisted this could only end in disaster. He caught Altair's gaze, saw the trust shining back at him despite the direness of their plight, and knew his choice was made. "The extraction point my crew was supposed to fall back to. It's not far. If we can reach it..." He trailed off, the unspoken risks hanging heavy. Altair read the uncertainty in his eyes and pressed her forehead to his, fingers curling into his hair. "Together," she whispered fiercely, "no matter what comes." As one, they turned and raced for the distant ridgeline, the furious roar of Gamelon engines swelling behind them. The unknown awaited, but they would face it side by side. David and Altair tore through the alien wilderness, their lungs burning as they pushed themselves to the limit. The extraction point was their only hope, but the relentless Gamelon pursuit forces closed in with each passing moment. "We need to move faster," David panted, pulling Altair along as they scrambled over jagged rocks. The barren valley stretched before them, a hellscape of seismic instability. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and noxious fumes belched from cracks in the earth. David's eyes watered as they ran through a cloud of acrid gas. "David, look out!" Altair cried. A river of molten rock suddenly burst from the ground ahead, cutting off their path. The heat seared their skin as they skidded to a stop mere feet from certain death. David frantically scanned their surroundings, his mind racing. That's when he spotted it, a network of deep crevices snaking through the rocky terrain. "This way!" he shouted, yanking Altair towards the nearest opening. "We can lose them underground." Altair hesitated at the mouth of the crevice, peering into the pitch-black depths. "Are you sure about this?" David met her eyes. "Do you trust me?" She nodded without hesitation. They plunged into the darkness, feeling their way through twisting passages as the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. The air grew thick and stale as they ventured deeper. Suddenly the ground heaved violently. Rocks showered down as the tunnel collapsed around them. "Altair!" David yelled, reaching for her, but she was gone, swallowed by the cave-in. Panic clawed at his chest as he dug frantically through the rubble. "Altair, can you hear me?" A faint cough answered him. Following the sound, he found her trapped in a small pocket, pinned beneath a massive boulder. "Hold on, I'll get you out!" David braced himself against the rock, straining with all his might. His muscles screamed in protest, but slowly, inch by agonizing inch, the boulder began to move. With a final heave, he shoved it aside and pulled Altair free. She gasped for air, trembling in his arms. "I thought I was going to die down here," she choked out. David brushed the dirt from her face, his touch lingering. "I'll always find you." Tears welled in Altair's eyes. "David, these past days with you, I've never felt this way about anyone before." His heart raced as he realized the depth of his own feelings. Without thinking, he leaned in and kissed her passionately. When they finally emerged from the tunnels, relief was short-lived. A Gamelon patrol ambushed them, plasma bolts sizzling through the air. David dove for cover, returning fire. To his shock, Altair snatched up a fallen Gamelon's weapon and joined the fight at his side. "I've got your back," she shouted, picking off an enemy soldier with surprising accuracy. As they fought their way clear, a stray shot caught David in the side. He stumbled, vision blurring from the pain. Altair half-carried him to shelter, her hands shaking as she applied a field dressing. "Stay with me," she pleaded, working to stabilize the wound. Days blurred together as they pushed on, David's condition worsening. Their supplies dwindled to nothing. All seemed lost until a familiar voice called out. "Reyes, is that you?" Jared, David's squad mate, emerged from the brush, rifle raised. His eyes narrowed at the sight of Altair. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. David struggled to speak through the haze of pain. "She saved my life, Jared. More than once. We can trust her." Jared hesitated, then lowered his weapon. "All right, but we need to move. This whole sector's about to be overrun." They hatched a desperate plan. Jared would create a diversion while Altair got David to the extraction point. As Jared vanished into the wilderness, drawing off the main Gamelon force, Altair supported David's weight as they made their final push. "Almost there," she encouraged him. "Just a little further." A Gamelon squad appeared, cutting off their escape. Altair propped David against a boulder and stood to face them, weapon raised. "I won't let you hurt him," she snarled. Just as all seemed lost, the sky filled with the roar of engines. Human dropships screamed overhead, laying down covering fire. As David's vision faded to black, the last thing he saw was Altair's face, refusing to let him go. David's eyes fluttered open, harsh white light assaulting his senses. The sterile smell of disinfectant filled his nostrils as he tried to piece together where he was. A medical frigate. He was aboard a human vessel. Relief washed over him, quickly replaced by a jolt of panic. "Altair!" he croaked, struggling to sit up. A firm hand pressed him back down. "Easy there, soldier," a gruff voice said. "You've been through hell." David blinked, focusing on the weathered face of the ship's doctor. "Where is she? The Gamelon woman who was with me?" The doctor's expression hardened. In custody, and you've got some explaining to do. Before David could protest, 2 MPs entered the room. David Reyes, you're to come with us immediately for questioning. His legs shook as they escorted him to a makeshift courtroom. David's heart sank as he saw the grim faces of the tribunal members. This wasn't going to be pretty. Corporal Reyes, the lead judge began, you stand accused of aiding and abetting an enemy combatant. How do you plead? David straightened his spine. Not guilty, sir. If you'll allow me to explain. We're listening, another judge cut in, skepticism evident in her tone. David took a deep breath and launched into his account. He described the chaos of battle, stumbling upon Altair, a civilian caught in the crossfire. He detailed their harrowing journey, the challenges they faced together, and the bond that formed. She saved my life multiple times, David said, his voice thick with emotion. Altair isn't our enemy. She's a victim of Gamelon propaganda, just like so many others. When she saw humanity's true nature through our actions, it changed her. The judges exchanged glances, but their expressions remained stony. A touching tale, the lead judge said, but hardly exonerating. This Altair is the daughter of a high-ranking Gamelon commander. How do we know this wasn't an elaborate ploy to infiltrate our defenses? David opened his mouth to argue, but the courtroom doors burst open. Altair strode in, head held high despite her shackles. I can speak for myself, she declared, her voice ringing out clear and strong. The room erupted in shocked whispers as Altair took the stand. She corroborated David's story, her eyes shining with sincerity as she described her journey from blind loyalty to enlightenment. I reject everything the Gamelon regime stands for, Altair said firmly. I want to help humanity end this war. With trembling fingers, she produced a data chip from a hidden compartment in her uniform. This contains vital Gamelon military intelligence. It's yours, along with my full cooperation. The judges huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. When they emerged, their faces were grave but no longer hostile. In light of this unexpected development, the lead judge announced, we find Corporal Reyes not guilty of treason. However, your actions were reckless and endangered your fellow soldiers. You are hereby stripped of rank and reassigned to Outpost Zeta 9. David's heart sank. Zeta 9 was in the middle of nowhere, far from any action and far from Altair. But at least they were both alive and free. Days later, David stood at the spaceport, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He tried to quash the ache in his chest as he prepared to board the transport that would take him to his new post. David! He whirled around, hardly daring to believe his ears. But there she was, Altair, pushing through the crowd, her face flushed. They collided in a fierce embrace, lips meeting in a desperate, passionate kiss. David cupped her face, memorizing every detail. I had to see you, Altair whispered. I couldn't let you leave without... Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed as the terminal went into lockdown. Confusion reigned as passengers were herded off their ships. Altair's eyes glittered with mischief. I may have arranged a little delay, she said, producing a handheld device. David's jaw dropped. You hacked the system. Altair, that's... The only way we stay together, she finished. I'm not letting you go, David Reyes. Not after everything we've been through. She extended her hand, a roguish smile playing on her lips. What do you say? Ready for our next adventure? David hesitated for only a heartbeat before grasping her hand, a grin spreading across his face. Together, they melted into the panicked crowd, 2 fugitives embarking on an uncertain future, but facing it side by side. David gripped Altair's hand as they slipped through the bustling spaceport, hearts pounding. Altair's eyes darted from ship to ship, searching. There, she whispered, nodding towards a battered freighter. That's our ticket out of here. They approached the vessel, Altair punching in a complex code. The airlock hissed open. How did you... David began. Hidden supply lines, Altair cut him off, ushering him inside. We don't have much time. The freighter's interior was cramped and musty. David ran his hands over the controls, familiarizing himself with the alien tech. Altair worked furiously, stocking supplies. As they lifted off, a proximity alarm blared. David's stomach dropped as he saw the blip on the radar. "Gamelon drone," Altair said, her voice tight. "It's transmitting our position." David pushed the engines to their limit, but it was too late. A massive shape loomed on the monitor, a Gamelon destroyer. "Surrender the traitor," a cold voice crackled over the comms. David's hands flew over the controls, desperate evasive maneuvers. Altair manned the weapons, returning fire. A direct hit rocked the ship. Sparks erupted from the console as systems failed. "We're losing power," Altair shouted. David spotted a nearby ice planet. It was their only chance. "Hold on!" He aimed for the frozen surface, fighting for control as they plummeted through the atmosphere. The impact threw them forward. Metal screamed as they skidded across the ice. When the ship finally stopped, David looked up. Altair was slumped in her chair, a trickle of blood on her forehead. He shook her gently. "Altair, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. "David, what?" "We crashed. The ship's toast. We need to move." They gathered what gear they could carry and stumbled out into a howling blizzard. The cold hit like a physical blow. "We need shelter," David shouted over the wind. Altair nodded, shivering violently. They trudged through knee-deep snow, the Gamelon ships a distant rumble overhead. David's military training kicked in. He carved out a small ice cave, packing the entrance with snow. Inside, they huddled together for warmth. "Your scientific knowledge," David said through chattering teeth. "Any ideas how to survive this?" Altair's eyes lit up. "There might be frozen organisms beneath the ice, if we can extract them." Days blurred together as they fought to stay alive. David's combat skills kept them safe from lurking predators. Altair's expertise helped them find food and purify water. One day, as David dug for frozen plant matter, the ice gave way beneath Altair's feet. She plummeted into a crevasse with a scream. "Altair!" David dove, catching her hand just in time. He strained, muscles burning as he pulled her to safety. They collapsed in the snow, gasping. Altair threw her arms around him. "You saved me," she whispered. David held her tight, realizing how close he'd come to losing her. As they explored further from their makeshift home, they stumbled upon a hidden entrance. The metal door was frosted over, but clearly artificial. "What is this place?" David wondered aloud. They ventured inside, following dark corridors deep underground. The facility was vast, filled with strange equipment. "It's Gamelon," Altair said, her voice hushed. "But I've never seen anything like this." They entered a large chamber filled with cryopods. David's breath caught as he peered inside one. "Oh God," he choked out. The being inside was neither human nor Gamelon, but a horrific fusion of both. Row after row of pods held similar monstrosities. Altair stumbled back, her face ashen. "What have they done?" A red light suddenly flashed. Klaxons blared. "Intruder alert," an automated voice announced. "Gamelon biomarkers detected." "Run!" David shouted. They sprinted through the facility as defense turrets activated. David spotted the main cryo chamber controls. "Cover me!" he yelled to Altair. She laid down suppressing fire as David worked. With a final keystroke, he triggered an overload. The facility shuddered. Ice cracked. They barely made it to the surface as the ground collapsed behind them. In the whiteout conditions, David knew what he had to do. He pulled Altair close, memorizing her face. "I love you," he said fiercely. Then he shoved her away, watching as she disappeared into the storm. David turned, creating a false trail. He heard the Gamelon troops closing in. As icy tendrils of frost crept up his body, he smiled. Altair was safe. It was enough.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.